AARP is dedicated to empowering people to choose how they live as they age. We have a long history of supporting veterans, military, and your families, including over 4 million who are AARP members today. There are 5.5 million military and veteran caregivers. We make it a priority to point you to resources that can help you provide better care for your loved ones and yourself. Veterans are twice as likely to be targets of con artists. AARP's Fraud Watch Network and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service have teamed up on Operation Protect Veterans to share tips on how military families like yours can protect themselves. AARP helps veterans better understand the civilian job-seeking process and helps military families identify financial milestones that make sense for you. With nearly 10% of our AARP's membership being veterans and military, we are dedicated to meeting your needs as you have sacrificed for our great nation. From all of us at AARP, thank you for your service.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Dole. Tonight, during this month celebrating our veterans and family caregivers, I'm proud to welcome you to this presentation of Sky Blossom, Diaries of the Next Greatest Generation. Thanks for being here. As a former senator and cabinet secretary, there have been few honors that I hold dearer than celebrating our country's service members. When I would go to military hospitals with my husband, Bob, I always spent time visiting with the spouses and children. They would share their stories of caring for their veteran. I was inspired by their grit and gumption. So 8 years ago, we set out at the Elizabeth Dole Foundation to support those who care for enlisted and retired military personnel. That's 5.5 million military and veteran caregivers worldwide. As part of that launch, Tom Hanks and I welcomed several ambassadors to help us get the word out. And one of them, news anchor Richard Louie, brought up the idea of putting our hidden heroes on the silver screen. I told him they deserved it. The documentary, called Sky Blossom, is 4 years in the making. I'm proud to say it is an Academy Award qualifying film that has also been listed by Variety as one of the top 25 Oscar contenders for 2021. And I'm proud that folks will be watching it in theaters in all 50 states tonight on Veterans Day. This is a moment when we can all come together as one in this great nation. It takes us into the homes and lives of some of the most inspiring, selfless young people in their teens and 20s. They are what makes the future of this country strong. The families you'll see in the film come from every corner of America, from the heartland to Hawaii, and they represent every major ethnic group. Even though we might look different, all of us who care for a loved one are the same. We do it because it is our honor. My husband Bob served in World War II, and that's when paratroopers first became essential. They would come from the sky, bringing military and medical support. As their chutes opened, troops on the ground would look up and say, "Here come the Sky Blossoms." Today's Sky Blossoms are young caregivers at home. We're excited to introduce you to some of them today. They're growing up as America's next greatest generation. I hope you enjoy the film.
Aloha, this is Senator Mazie Hirono. I am proud to join bipartisan voices supporting our nation's civilian and military caregivers. These caregivers often sacrifice parts of their childhoods to help. They play an increasingly critical role in helping veterans and military retirees live their day-to-day lives with dignity. I want to give a special mahalo to Kamaile and Kaleo Kapanui of Waimea, Kauai, featured in the film for their dedication as caregivers for their late grandfather, Bobby, a Korean War-era veteran. They cared for Bobby in the spirit of kuleana, or responsibility, and it is our kuleana to continue to support caregivers like Kamaile and Kaleo. There are over 110,000 veterans in the state of Hawaii, many of whom are Asian Americans, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders, and so many of their families are serving as caregivers. This film honors their commitment to their family members, as well as their family members' commitment to our nation and our veterans. Enjoy the film. Aloha.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us here at the theater. Well, we just had a special press screening of Sky Blossom, Diaries of the Next Greatest Generation. We really appreciate you joining us for this special discussion on lessons of civilian and military caregiving, thanks and underwritten by AARP Hawaii. We thank everybody for joining us today. This is such an important discussion, especially we're in Veterans Day month, as all of you know, and I've got some really great people on this panel and a great studio audience here with us. Yeah, now how about that? You know, this is no Zoom webinar. This is a real live audience. So we thank them all for supporting this discussion today. We appreciate, again, you being here. My name is Richard Louie. I'm the director of Sky Blossom. Also, I am a family caregiver. I'm also an AARP caregiving ambassador. So I really love this topic a lot. But let's get into our experts here that are on the panel to discuss this very topic with us. And I'll start with somebody that probably none of you know here in Hawaii, but I'm joking, of course. Ron, why don't you kick us off? Give us your name as well as tell us what you do.
All right, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm very humbled to be here and humbled to see you and your family's story. Ron Mizutani, PBS Hawaii, President and CEO. Prior to that, I was at Hawaii Food Bank for several years, and before that, 33 years at KH1 Television. So understanding the work that you do, but also the important responsibility that I have delivering the news to our community. But I too served, and I don't say serve, I had the privilege to caregive for my dad, who was also a veteran, and I wouldn't exchange that experience for the world. Yeah. I was not prepared for it by any means. They don't have a class for it. They don't have anything that says, hey, you're up.
Yeah.
But it was almost 10 and a half years of life lessons for me too. So I'm glad to be a part of this conversation.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks for being here. Hey, Kamali, tell us your name and what you do and who you are.
My name's Kamaile Kapanui.
Woo!
My name's Kamaile Kapanui. I'm from Waimea, Kauai, and I was taking care of my grandpa for 5 years. He recently passed at the end of July of this year. And yeah, just like Ron said, there's no class or anything to prepare you on taking care of your elder, but it's just something we just end up doing.
Thank you, Kamali. Appreciate that. Ilahia, how's it going?
Going well.
Your name and use your mics just like this, right about this distance. Perfect for me.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right. Aloha kako. Thank you to all of you who filled this theater. You know, it's been so long since I've been in a venue with people and live applause. I wasn't even dropping hints, but mahalo for that.
Yeah, that's what you're doing. It's okay.
And you know, we'll get into this a little bit later, but I realized as we're sitting here, we never went to many movies growing up, and it was because my dad didn't really do closed, crowded spaces. Just realized that today. But you know, caregiving is an adventure. It's a cherished, special time to spend with the people you love, the people, like you said, Ron, have the privilege of caring for. So I'm happy to be here today as the son of a Vietnam veteran, as a caregiver, as an ambassador of sorts, as an Elizabeth Dole Foundation Caregiver Fellow. And I might be best known after today as the guy 2 seats down from Ron Mizutani.
And Ilahia, give us your full name and who you're working for now.
Sure. Ilahia Johnson. I grew up in Hilo, live in Kona, And my day job is public affairs officer for the Hawaii Tourism Authority.
Yeah. Thank you all three for being here. This is a conversation that all of us have had based on our love of caregiving. And I am so glad that I get to sit with you. I was first opened up to talking about this publicly because of one AARP leader named Daphne Kwok, and she got me out there talking about it, and I can't stop. And I know that the three of you agree with that on your own parts too, because all of a sudden you're talking about something that you never talked about before. It's kind of personal. Let's start right with the title. Give us a lesson on civilian and military caregiving, something that you learned that you want to pass on to other folks. And Ron, we'll start with you.
First of all, the film, congratulations.
Thank you.
What a beautiful film. And if you are out there listening to this today, please encourage your families to tune into PBS Hawaii tomorrow night. It is one of the most moving things I've ever watched, ever.
Yeah.
Very raw, very real. And I love your story. By the way, my dad died July 27th. So I feel you 2 years ago. Oof. I cannot tell you how many times I cried watching your film. So congratulations. And thank you for sharing your story. The lessons really is, and every story, every family story was different, which I really loved and appreciated. Every challenge was different. Everybody's lessons learned were different. But at the end of the day, it was just the privilege to be there when they needed you most. Now, I'm not going to lie. My experience with my father was life-changing.
Yeah.
Boy, I learned very quickly about Medicare, about falls, about, changing diapers, it just, you name it. And when he took his final breath on July 27th, in my arms, and he grabbed my sister's hand and my wife's hand, it was the most amazing moment of my life. I didn't have a relationship with my father when I was young. My father was absent, which makes it even crazier that I was his caregiver.
Right.
That I was asked to be pressed into this role because I knew it was my duty. Being a military veteran himself, I knew he served, but also just to being a son, even though we were estranged for many years.
Yeah.
It was my role, and to be there for his last breath was one of the most amazing things I ever did, and being a part of.
Are you saying, Ron, that you learned to love him again?
I learned to forgive him. And I think he learned how important I was to him. He had a massive stroke that took away his ability to speak. For 11 years, he never said a word. He could cuss a little bit. It's amazing what the brain can still do.
Yeah.
But we became closer in 11 years than the first 40 years of our lives. And again, forgive, heal, love. And boy, that's what a treasure that is to be a part of that. And I'm sure you both have all felt that. Yeah.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah.
Kamali, what would you pass on as a caregiver to others?
I'd say one of the most important things about caregiving is taking time for yourself as well, not forgetting to take care of yourself, because you won't be able to take care of this other person if you're not taking care of yourself. And like we were saying last night, mental health is very important as well.
Yes.
And just seeing these other family stories, and it's just all so different, but just the love that we have for our families just comes through so strong. And like Ron was saying, forgiveness as well, because Papa had dementia and he said and did some kind of mean things, but I know it wasn't him. My neighbor put it very well. She said, it's not him, it's the disease. And I just had to just remind myself of that every single time, just so I wouldn't have any hard feelings towards him, because that would just makes it so much harder. Might as well be happy and love the person and forgive them. And
when were you able to forgive him?
pretty quickly after every time, just reminding myself that it's not him.
Yeah.
Like, he was never like that before when we were younger and growing up. He was the best papa. He would always take us to the beach, take us fishing, camping, and he taught me a lot. He taught me how to swim, and just trying to remember the good times before the disease really just took over his brain. And yeah.
A lot all at once. Ilahi, in your journey in caregiving for your father, what's the lesson you'd pass on?
Seeing a lot of the veterans in the film, and certainly out in our communities, it's easier to spot those who have borne the physical costs of war, right? You can see the veteran who lost a limb or two or three, right? I think my biggest lesson was that people struggle with things sometimes you can see, sometimes you cannot see.
That's right.
For my dad, his PTSD, his anxiety, it's not apparent.
Right.
He worked for over 20 years. He was Tony from ACE, he lays hardware, right? Smiling, happily helping folks, but inside was sore. Inside, he had these things to deal with. So I think one big lesson is just extending that grace to folks, because you don't know what people are struggling with. You don't know, the person, but certainly their caregivers as well, right? It's not as obvious as you would think. And with 112,000 veterans in Hawaii
Alone. That's right.
the chances of you running into a veteran or their caregiver,
That's right,
is really, really, it's a good chance, right? So extending that grace, I think, is one. The other big lesson for me was the importance of sharing the stories,
right.
to understand that we're not by ourselves. I as I'm sure everyone here knew who Ron is, I never knew you were a caregiver until preparing for this panel, right? I never got the honor of meeting Kamaile until today and learning your story from the film. So sharing these stories and having the venues to share them, I think, is critical and helps us understand, helps us offer that grace, that kokua, as a community, as a nation. We kind of shoulder this responsibility of caring for those who made those sacrifices. So thanks to you for pulling the film together.
For everybody. And for those who are just joining us on this webinar from AARP Hawaii, we were talking about lessons in civilian and military caregiving. And I can't thank all of our panelists here. By the way, since I'm a cable news anchor, you can interrupt anytime. Yeah, just be friendly, be nice, the Hawaii spirit, right? Let's make
Cable
sure.
news anchor on the friendly channel.
That's right. There you go. There you go. Those lessons come at a cost. And share with us what you lost is the wrong word, but tell me the difficulty, because, we're not saying that it's easy. We're not saying that it's all peaches and cream either. What hurt? What was the pain along the way? Anybody? You want to start, Ron?
Sure. I think I wouldn't call it pain now that I look back, and he's been gone for 2 years, and I reflect back on my time with him. Sometimes it was just silence, and it was beautiful. Other times was just a smile or a look that he gave me. Like I said, he had a few words that he could share. Talk about being mean. I hear you.
Yeah.
He would tell me, "Oh, you fat," and I said, "You ugly." So we'd have this little humor, but at the same time, I knew that he was frustrated. He couldn't speak. And, self-care is so very important. And I lost myself. I'll be very honest. I lost myself in the beginning because I was shouldering so much. And my dad thankfully had the resources to do things that maybe some other families could not. And again, his war experiences weren't so much of an issue in the later years. But definitely the struggles of just not being able to do what he did.
Yeah.
3rd degree black belt karate, big human being who was really the patriarch of that side of the family, not a very active part of my life as a child, but here I was caring for my father. And I lost 10 years of my time, but I gained so much in return. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. But self-care is so very important. I mean, I gained a tremendous amount of weight. My blood pressure went skyrocketing. All of the things, because I just let my health go. I stopped paddling. I just consumed myself with caregiving. And I had help at the end, thank God. Because at that time, he couldn't even hold his shishi. I mean, it was just one after another until he finally could do no more. But that's the biggest thing. I wouldn't say it. I lost time. I just got lost in the process and lost myself, and eventually found myself and understood the importance of asking for help. You cannot do it alone. Thankfully, again, we could ask for help, and the resources were there at the end for us. Not everybody has that luxury.
No. Molly or Alethea?
Yeah, so just like Ron was saying, like he took care of his dad for 10 years. I took care of my papa for 5 years. And that was when I was in the prime of my 20s, 23 to 28. All my friends are going out and hanging out. And I just couldn't really do much because I had to be home with papa. And yeah, at the time I felt like I was missing out big time on everything, but just to be able to spend that time with my papa, especially now that he's not around anymore. And that was very special. And I'm like, well, I'm ready to have a kid now. I'm ready. But after a little break first, and I gotta find a boyfriend too. But,
Details.
Yeah. So yeah, looking back at it, I'm just like, that was great. I'm so glad I got to spend all that time with my grandpa. But if you asked me at the time, I'd probably just be like, this grouchy old man dealing with every day. But it was good to spend time with him and get all his stories before he did pass away. So,
What was his name for you?
I mean, towards the end, he'd call me Lynette, which was my mom's name. And in a way, it was good because he knew I was someone familiar.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they kind of had a rocky relationship. So
was it a way that was negative when he would call you Lynette?
sometimes yes, and sometimes no. But it just really hurt me being his caregiver, and he didn't know who I was half the time. Yeah, and he pretty much raised me and my brothers. He retired when I was young, so he was always taking us out and about all over the place. And yeah, taking care of him was an honor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's an interesting question, right?
Yeah.
And I'll preface this with, I think in Hawaii, as we grow up and, we have so many multi-generational households.
Yeah.
That caring for our elders is kind of a given,
Is it?
Well, great question. In some circles, yes, it's a given.
Yeah.
Is it as common of a given now?
Yeah.
Maybe not. But I think in terms of things I gave up, so my mom passed away when I was 19. She had been kind of primary caretaker / glue of the family. And her loss kind of triggered a lot of things for my dad. Revisiting some of these, repressed traumas of war that had just been tucked away for so long. And so my journey began, about 16 years ago. So 19, 20s, college, starting career. I think one thing I gave up was some sleep, and that's fine. That's, although Ron, to your point, you do have to take care of yourself and not let your health go. And Komaile mentioned the same thing. I actually think of that lesson every time I get on a plane, because the flight attendant will tell you, put on your mask, then help the person you're with, right? Because if you pass out, it's not helping anybody.
Right.
The other thing that I would say I gave up is a little bit of privacy, in a sense. My dad had a rough patch.
Meaning?
He had let some things go. He had gotten into some, not great relationships. Effectively lost the house. And so it broke my heart to see the conditions he was allowing himself to live in. So I asked him, will you please come stay with me? 2-bedroom apartment in Hilo, not huge, in my 20s. So there was some loss of privacy there, I think, on both of our parts.
Sure.
I
don't think the other panelists know what that's about at all.
Not at all. Not at all. But what also, it was also a gift because, my partner now, she knew coming into it, like, look, I take care of Pops. That's not a negotiable part of this. And she accepted that. And she actually lost her father to, a lifestyle related thing a while back. That's what prompted her to move back to Hawaii. And so it was a challenge, right?
Yeah.
You lose the privacy, but also, you with your dad, you got to cherish that. So, we're all living together now, plus my 3-year-old daughter. So it's lots of fun. And for what I gave up in privacy, sleep, and the other things, my daughter gets to have her grandpa right there.
Yep.
Every day. Right now, actually. So it's worth it.
Quick question for all three of you. Is caregiving a zero-sum game? Meaning if you give something, you lose something? Or is it 1 + 1 = 3? That's a tough question. That my journey going through it was, I thought I was giving up something. I was losing $1 out of my pocket. I was losing an hour of my life. And then now that I'm farther down the road, I'm like, man, it is 1 + 1 = 3. But it takes so long sometimes to get there. What really quickly, what's your view on that? Kamala, what do you think? Is it 1 + 1 = 3? Is it, I know it's very, is it, because sometimes we feel like when we give up time, like we're losing it. Yeah. But I'm saying, I believe, I'll tell you, I believe that 1 + 1 = 3, like it doesn't equal 2. Like I'm getting something out of it by caregiving. But sometimes we think, oh man, I'm losing and losing and losing.
Yeah. I definitely felt that way at the time, just not being able to go and hang out with all my friends. But I did gain so much from taking care of my papa and really learned a lot about him and a lot about caregiving, a lot about life, and I learned a lot about myself as well in the process. So, and yeah, I really wouldn't trade it for anything. It's made me who I am today, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, it is. And for you, Ilahia, 1 +, you're in the middle of it too right now. Is it 1 + 1 = 3, or when are you losing stuff? You're losing time and life and money and treasure.
Thanks for the question. I think for me, Ron, Komaile, you've lost your person who you were caring for. For me, the tab's still open, but we're certainly in the black. It's been super enriching, I think. And yes, there were absolutely difficult times where,
yes, of course,
like, right, you're talking like you like beat it.
Yeah.
Of course, I wouldn't allow that to actually happen.
Sure.
Certainly the you know, it can get frustrating at times.
Yeah. So you're 1 + 1 = 3 for you. Yeah.
I would say we're at like 9, 10, 11, still going.
Oh, 1 + 1
Right.
= 10.
We're still going.
That's excellent. Right? All right. If you're listening, we've got 200 people in this room.
1 + 1 = 200.
1 + 1 = 2. Ron, what about you? I mean, you shared some of it earlier. Is it 1 + 1 = 3? Now that you look back, was there a time where it wasn't for you?
Oh, for sure. 1 + 1 = -10 at one time.
Yeah.
I mean, the depression, the doubt, the self-doubt, you know, the why me,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
especially why me. But that all disappeared pretty quickly once I started to feel the fulfillment of being there for my father when he fell, when I had to run to the ER, when we had to jump in an ambulance together. I mean, it was a incredibly grueling time at one point. But I'll tell you what it also helped me do is it allowed me to understand the process of caring for myself
Yeah.
post life so that my children aren't going to have to endure some of the challenges that I had. So preparing my trust, preparing my will, preparing my directives on medical, if I ever would reach that point of care. All of those things that I failed to address as a young adult, I got done very quickly because I was living it. And I would suggest everybody out there take the time to make that investment because the peace of mind that you're going to provide your own children is priceless. I say there's one quick story. I know we got to wrap it. My oldest boy, he's 30.
Yeah.
And I said, son, you know, he saw the change in dad and as I took care of his papa. I said, do me a favor. When dad gets to the point like papa, take me up to Wilhelmina Rise and just push.
Yeah.
And he said, hell no, because knowing you can survive and you're going to be more work. And I said, you make a good point, but jokingly, you know.
That's a funny one. And I got to ask you this. They saw a change in dad.
Yeah.
What did they see? And what do you think that did? How did it change them?
I think you would have to ask them that. What I hope they saw was this person who was not a real part of their life initially, certainly not a part of mine. Yet I had the grace to forgive him and step into that role.
Yeah.
And I hope at the end they saw what love and perseverance can do to conquer that and mend and heal wounds. Because at the end they saw how much love that my father and I had for each other, that we didn't exist. So caregiving provided me with that opportunity to love a man who I once hated.
Yeah.
And amazingly, it was happening when he could not say a word, which was kind of cool, right? But at the same time, you know, the eye contact, the smiles, even the cussing, it was just an amazing time, and I'm grateful that I had that opportunity.
Thank you so much so far. We're about halfway through. I want to let you know that we'll be taking questions. We're going to be here till 45 after the hour. Please engage and go to Facebook Live. You can go to AARP Hawaii's Facebook and put in your questions there. We also have our live audience here who questions, please, as well. We're going to get to that shortly. So just raise your hand when I reach out to you.
One at a time, please. I know
yeah.
I know there are so many of you here.
That's right. It's actually a great audience. We joke, but yes, they're mighty and powerful and have a lot
Absolutely.
to say. And you know, one of the things that I think is out there for us is, where did you go to get help? Give me some ideas. It's tough. You know, it took me a while. So, for instance, me and my caregiving journey, I started to reach out to the local chapter and the website of the Alzheimer's Association, because I wasn't sure, like, why is Dad doing this? Why is he doing this right now? And golly, there were some answers, and we were able to help each other when we weren't sure about the medical decisions. You know, we reached out to fellow caregivers, and called them out and said, how are you handling this Alzheimer's situation? I'll open question to all three of you. What was kind of the place that you went to that was super helpful for you?
So I didn't really ask for help at first.
Yeah.
But
Common, right? For a lot of folks.
yeah. But Papa grew up in Waimea Town, lived there pretty much his whole life. He lived here for a little bit, but mostly in Waimea. So pretty much everyone in the town knows him. And as he got more and more forgetful, he'd go on walks and tried to walk home to his house down in the valley, which is about like a 20-minute walk to get down there. And people would see me like driving around, like looking for Papa and be like, he's over there. So at first it was just like the people of the community helping.
Yeah.
And then my Auntie Julie, who's my grandma's sister, so Papa's sister-in-law, she could tell that I was just getting really overwhelmed with Papa and kind of pretty much taking care of Kaleo too. So
Your younger brother.
Yeah. So she just started sending me all these links of stuff to read on dementia and caregiving, and she'd always find like these little packets. I don't know, like pamphlets. Like I don't know where she found them, but she would just always come over with all these like pamphlets. And I was like, thank you so much, Auntie Julie. And that was really helpful. And yeah, I'm not one to really ask for help, but people just offered to help. And I got a good set of friends that were so helpful too. And
we have to remember, of the 53 million people doing this across the country, they are unpaid and untrained. And all of us and many in this room and out there are doing this today. It's worth over $500 billion a year. And, you know, I didn't call myself a caregiver, because I don't think three of you did either, until you probably had a conversation with somebody. And you're like, oh, yeah, I guess I do have that job too. And it is a full-time job and more. And so these resources, and you talked about wandering, you know, my father also wandered once, and my mom was out driving, couldn't find him, came back home. And there are now call for help, call 911, don't do it alone. And I was talking with some law enforcement just in this last month for National Family Caregiving Month, which is Caregivers Month, which is this month of November, also Alzheimer's Awareness Month, which is also November. And they were saying, call, because that was our family's same thing. We're going to go and drive and try to find this guy. Call 911. They're trained in many cases on how to handle them. Let them know it's a wanderer. Let them know that it's somebody who is living with Alzheimer's or dementia. And because we're not good at it. We're not trained to find missing people. Yeah, we did. I'm so with you on that, Kamali. And exactly. And I just learned it. You know, I just learned it like last month that we can do such things. Our other two panelists, was there a service organization you went to? Tell me what worked for you.
You know, for my dad, one of the things that started unraveling the mystery was grief counseling provided by Hospice of Hilo, now Hawaii Care Choices. Grandma, my mom's mom, passed away a couple of years after my mom, and she was on hospice at home with us. So we were all caring for her. But the grief counseling that they provided started to unravel a lot of this stuff. Yeah. So mahalo nui to Hospice of Hilo and all the wonderful dedicated folks there. That started it. One thing, this is sometimes attributed to being a guy thing. Sometimes this is attributed to being a veteran thing. Then I ask for help, and they're reluctant to accept it when it's offered. But one veteran in particular in Hilo Town is very good at advocating for his fellow veterans and encouraging them to access services available to them. He was a regular customer of my dad's at Ace Hardware, and he finally got him to walk through the door at the vet center.
It takes one, right? Just takes one.
You never know which one.
Yeah, that's right.
You never know. So
what's his name?
Gino Innocencio.
Gino Innocencio. So, thank you.
Uncle Gino, mahalo to you.
You know, you bring a good point, though, because Isn't caregiver the stereotype it's women? Unfairly, incorrectly, like a lot of things. So we can get into gender inequity for the next 42 years. That's a whole ball. But when it comes
That's
to
a whole other
caregivers,
film.
that's right.
Yeah.
But this is why it's important to show men as family caregivers, because we need to talk about it more so we can show that it's an everybody thing. And in some families, my mom, she was the youngest daughter, and she was expected to do those things. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that my dad thought that sometimes too. And so it's very important that you talk about this. And it's not a guy, I know you're saying this, Illy. It's not a guy thing. It's not a gal thing. It's an everybody thing.
Absolutely.
And I'm guessing for you, Kamali, I don't know, in your family, because you're the only daughter and you have two brothers, was it, hey, you got to do it quietly?
No one really told me I had to do it,
Yeah.
but just my mom passed and then my grandma got sick, and my grandma was the one taking care of my grandpa. She was fine. She was working as long as she could work. She was a hairdresser. Like, you're gonna have to pry these scissors off my hands. Yeah, she just worked until she couldn't anymore. And it was just Kaleo at the house with both of them.
Yeah.
So I'd try to come over and help out. And shortly after, my grandma passed away, and I was like, Kaleo's 17. Like, I'm not gonna leave him here all alone with Papa with dementia. Like, he was still in high school, and my other brother was a teacher, so he was teaching on the east side of the island.
Yeah.
So
You had to pull it all together.
kind of just, there was no one else, and
Yeah.
not just gonna
Right.
leave them.
Yep. You took it
So-
upon yourself, and you knew it was the right thing.
Strapped up my boots and
That's
hopped
right.
in.
You were wearing 18 boots. So Kamali Kapanui from the film Sky Blossom, which will be airing on PBS Hawaii tomorrow night. You can't miss that. Thank you, Ron, for that. Just want to remind people. So give us what's sort of was there a VSO? Was there a CBO, community-based organization, veteran services organization, for all these letters I'm throwing out there right now? Was there something out there that helped you along the way there, Ron?
All of the above, but for me, it was also just understanding that I was falling apart.
Yeah.
And so my mental health was in the toilet.
Mm.
And so I reached out to get mental health treatment for me.
Mm.
And I say, when we say raise our hands, because we think we can handle Randall,
Yeah.
we cannot. So raised my hand to ask for help, for resources to come to Dad, but also to help myself. I can share with, oh God, I hope my mom ain't watching, but I'm about to go into caregiver 2.0 because my mom's dementia is now considered moderate. And I know what's ahead. And I know it's going to be a challenge. I'm actually going to jump on a plane with her tomorrow to take her to watch my son play football in college. She hasn't seen him yet in college because this is going to be her last trip. She knows that. Her memory is going that quick. So I'm about to be pressed into the role again.
Yeah.
And, at the time when my dad was really starting to fall apart, I was, we have other lives, and my life was feeding Hawaii's hungry at the time. And this is right before COVID. And right when COVID hit, everything hit. So my world was chaos and my mental health was going down the toilet. So what I can share with everybody is raise your hand.
Yeah.
Because there's help out there to help yourself
Yeah.
as a caregiver. One more thing I wanted to share. When I was at KHON, I was already a caregiver to my father. And we used to do this thing that I created a franchise called Kupuna Life, which is highlighting all of our kupuna in Hawaii. And then I said, you know what? We need to also do something called Kupuna Caregiver because the caregivers out there need to be known that they're not alone. So we created a separate franchise that's still on today of Kupuna Caregiver to not highlight, to say, hey, good job.
Yeah.
But to let everybody know you're not alone.
That's right.
And this is a journey that we're not paid for.
Yeah.
Paid, we're not trained for, we're not prepared for.
Yeah.
Some of us will never be ready for,
Yeah.
but some of us get pressed into it without even asking.
For those on the mainland who don't understand what kupuna caregiving it means, is thank you.
Well, kupuna meaning our elder,
Uh,
and that's sacred to Hawaii, right? Our elders, we respect, we honor, we treasure, we cherish. Kupuna caregiver was just the person caring for that elder.
yeah. And thank you for sharing the very important topic, mental health, again, because it is overly simplified as something that is either a 1 or a 0. It's like if you say the words mental health, that, oh, it's the person walking down the street screaming at the sky. And it's not. It's like we care about our blood pressure. We care about how strong we are physically. We should care about how strong our brain is and how healthy it is too. And that's been my journey too, about talking about that openly and trying to learn. So I appreciate you doing that. And just between the two of us for a moment, what are two news anchors doing talking about this topic and laying out their lives? Aren't we supposed to be like, this?
It's our responsibility. It's part of what you signed up for as a journalist,
Yeah.
telling the story. And in this case, we're turning the camera on ourselves and being very raw and very, very truthful. And that's actually a gift for us in that role, to have that kind of capacity or that kind of reach.
Yeah.
It's important for us to do that because
It's what my dad would want me to do.
it's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, it's exactly what he'd want me to do. No bones about it. My friends, any questions in the audience here? We've got 10 minutes left. Anybody with a question here? And of course, you can go to Facebook Live as well as put in your questions there. And we have a very happy army looking at those questions. And way in back, right there.
Aloha. My question has to do actually with the mental health piece.
Oh, you can stand there.
You can hear.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's a huge piece because it's hit. We hide it from ourselves. And Kamaile, I just keep coming back to you and your mom. And how were you able to keep moving forward?
Thank you. And any other questions out there? We'll get two at the same time. So, by the way, the question, if you couldn't hear it out in Digitalville, was how was Kamaile able to move on after she lost her mother? And Kamaile, we'll get that shortly. And then a question in the back there as well.
Yeah, this question is for Ron. I'm just curious. You were estranged from your dad for so long. What made you again? Did you have any brothers or sisters? I mean, with the relationship that you had, what made you going to be the one to take care of?
Thank you. And the question is to Ron. How did he decide to step in? Does he have any siblings that were also for consideration in this whole question? Kamaile, you first.
So it was really hard with everything that happened with my mom and my grandma, both just so fast. It really hurt me, and I know it really hurt the rest of my family. And I know if I harmed myself in any way, that would just hurt them even more. So I was just thinking about my family, and life is what you make of it. So if you make it great, then it'll be great. And if you just be all, the only word I can think of is haboot right now, but be all haboot and just, then
Thumbs down.
it's hard to get back up. So really just keep on doing whatever you were doing before. Just keep on living your life. And it's of course different not having those people around anymore, but life doesn't stop for anyone. You just gotta keep on rolling with the punches and just take whatever punches you get from life. And
Keep on keeping on.
keep on keeping on.
Yeah, thank you, Kamaile, for sharing that. Ron's going, and then we'll get right back to you. Go for it, Ron.
Thank you for the question. You know, I honestly, I think about that often. Why? Why did I step up? My dad and I were trying to build a relationship right before his stroke. We would share weekly breakfasts. One Thursday he didn't show up, and I didn't know why. So, and my youngest was with me at the time. I said, "Well, Papa must be busy," but at the same time I said, "Here we go again." Uh, Went back to work at KHON. I got a call from Hawaiian Telephone. My dad was found in the parking lot, pretty much dead. He had suffered a massive stroke, had probably been lying there for about 7 or 6 hours, is what they
Wow.
determined. The damage was severe already, but he had his Hawaiian telephone company ring on. They knew I was Ron the second. That's how they tracked me down at KHON. I was at Queens Hospital in 5 minutes, and that was the beginning of my caregiving life. To see my father literally in a coma, not knowing when he comes out how bad the damage was going to be, and boy, strap it on and cowboy up, and fell in love with my dad. Man that I thought I hated, and that's pretty cool. When I look back.
Yeah, it's more than cool, Ron. More than cool. We always say we come of age, like, and what I've realized is, boy, when we got this caregiving thing this is the biggest coming of age in my life so far. How would the three of you quickly? We've got 4 minutes left here. That coming of age description to share with others. How would you put it together in one sentence, Ilahia? In one sentence, when did you your latest coming of age, and describe to me in a sentence what that was?
Sure. There are these kind of big milestones in life. We're born, first birthday party here in Hawaii. That's huge. Just given that once upon a time, children didn't always make it that far. Different cultures have those certain dates that are big, and you go and you graduate and you do this, you do that. I think sort of the crowning or one of those sort of bigger milestones is being entrusted with the care of a parent or grandparent.
And what year would you say that happened to you?
Well, so my mom was on kidney dialysis for 7 years before she passed when I was 19. So in varying levels of responsibility.
Starting at 19.
You could start at 12, you could start at 19.
And then your latest? What year? How old were you? Your latest coming of age. How old were you?
32 when I became a father.
32. Okay. Kamali, how about you? What year was like, oh, gee whiz, I'm grown up now in this caregiving journey? What was it, last year? Was it 5 years ago? What year? Just give me the year.
Yeah, it was probably 5 years ago when I started taking care of Papa and Kaleo. It's just, everything just happened so fast. And
isn't it happening now too? Coming of age again, like you're. You started by telling us I have a whole new life. You have a whole life in front of you. In addition, right?
Yep. So I can go back to school. I can go back to work. And really just focus on myself, which I haven't been able to do in a long time, and especially in my 20s too. That's supposed to be like my selfish time where I just worry about myself.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I got to do
It was your selfless time.
Yes. Ron, how about you?
Right now,
yeah,
I'm 56, and I'm a kupuna. I'm a grandfather, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
But when I say coming of age, I think every day is a renewed day for me. Now that I've had this opportunity to learn and the platform to share.
Yeah.
And then throw it out there as raw and uncomfortable as it can be. It's really helping me heal. And now as I look ahead, as all the kids are gone, but here comes mom.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to prepare to strap it up one more time. And that's my mommy, So the journey never ends. And to all the caregivers out there who've been, I look at the film and I'm nowhere near some of the responsibilities that those families had. And certainly, again, I had resources that my dad was had prepared for. But it doesn't minimize the gift that you're giving to them and really the gift that they're giving to you. And trust me, Papa knew who you were to the end. To the end.
I want to finish with this question. And I thank you all for being so open. It helps a lot of people. I know the three of you know that. When you were taking care of your loved ones, when you were getting them food or helping them get home or getting them clean or showering them, right? These daily activities that we do. What were your actions saying to them? What were you saying to them when you were doing this? Ilahia?
From balancing the checkbook to, ripping apart the closet to find the source of that smell to whatever it was, it all said, I love you. It all said, thank you for what you did to raise me, that now I'm thankful for the opportunity to reciprocate that.
Well said. Kamali?
He hit the nail on the head there. That's what I was going to say. But yeah, I love you and I'm here for you. And thank you for raising me. Thank you for taking care of me. Now I can take care of you.
Mine's a little different because I didn't have that nurturing as a father. My mom was my father. But when I was able to look back now and as he laid there, I can still see him. The message at the end is every action that we did, whether it's picking him up naked off the floor, scooping up poop, brushing him off in an ambulance, breaking down the wheelchair every single freaking day, is I love you unconditionally. And I think when I see it in his eyes as he looked back at me, even in that final night, he was telling me the same thing. And that's a lesson we can all embrace because forgiveness is part of healing. And at that moment, I totally forgave him before his last breath. And that's, I can go tomorrow. I'm good. I'm good. Like I told my heart doctor, 70, I'm out. And he said, not on my watch, pal. He said, you fire me, then you can go. But yeah, it's a gift. Caregiving is a gift. It is a grind. It really is. But at the end, wouldn't change it for the world.
Thank you for being beautiful people, my friends. Thank you all three. And sharing and being vulnerable all along the way. Thank you, Ilahia. Thank you, Kamali. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you for bringing us together.
Oh, it is my pleasure and an honor to do this. And I just want to remind folks that guides are real important. We talk about lessons very early on in this majority of this. There are a couple of guides. There's the Veterans and Military Caregivers Guide, written by military caregiver that I know very closely, personally, who's also in the film Sky Blossom. There's also the Veterans Healthcare Benefits Guide that AARP puts out as well. Those links will be on the slides as well as on the Facebook Live after the panel. Check them out. I used it for my family because once you're in, you need like a guide to help you along. And we filled it all out. And it really does help. And so thank you all. And by the way, they're starting a movie. So thank you all for being with us. We appreciate it. Thank you, AARP Hawaii and Lessons in Military and Civilian Caregiving. And let the movie play this Thursday on PBS Hawaii. So check that out also on your listings. Thanks for being here.
Mahalo nui.
Thank you.